The genocide was televised. From the book Gaza Is the Evidence, how the world watched a genocide unfold. The genocide in Gaza has not unfolded in darkness. It has not been hidden by censorship or buried in archives. It has not been quietly whispered through refugee stories generations later. This genocide has been televised in high resolution, in real time, in front of the entire world. We watched it happen. Governments watched. Media corporations watched. Billions of people watched as families were buried under rubble, as children cried beneath drone fire, as entire cities vanished from the map. And still they denied it. From the first bombs that fell on October 7, 2023, to the systematic shelling of hospitals, bakeries, apartment blocks, and refugee camps well into 25, Gaza has become the most visible crime scene of the modern era. This is not just a humanitarian disaster. This is a deliberate, sustained attempt to erase a people, their bodies, their culture, their homes, and their memory. This is genocide. Gaza is the evidence. Gaza is not a side conflict. It is not an unfortunate consequence of war. Gaza is the culmination of a settler colonial project decades in the making. One rooted in ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, and racial apartheid. Gaza is the evidence of the dispossession that began in 1948 and never stopped, of the open-air prison created by a decades-long blockade, of the 2 million Palestinians trapped and then targeted, of international complicity that made this destruction possible. It is not just the people of Gaza being killed. It is the proof of their existence that is being erased, brick by brick, scroll by scroll, archive by archive. This is not just mass death. This is the annihilation of memory itself. The global north looked away. As the bodies piled up, the so-called leaders of the free world chose silence, or worse, support the United States airlifted weapons and gave political cover at the UN. The UK provided intelligence and ran surveillance flights from its airbase in Cyprus. European leaders offered full-throated endorsements of Israel's right to defend itself, while food, water, and medicine were blocked from reaching a starving population. And the media, they flooded newsrooms with false headlines. Beheaded Israeli babies. Stories that were later disproven but never retracted with equal urgency. Meanwhile, the actual beheaded Palestinian babies, the children burned alive, the teenagers shot by snipers, were deemed too political, too graphic, too inconvenient to report. The erasure wasn't just physical. It was editorial. It was legal. It was spiritual. What was destroyed was more than buildings. As Gaza burned, so too did its churches. Some centuries-old mosques that stood through empires were reduced to ash in seconds. Ancient cemeteries were shelled, historic libraries were turned to rubble. Homes filled with ancestral heirlooms. The books, the wedding photos, the family olive trees, vaporized in fire. The destruction was not random. It was targeted. This is not just the murder of civilians. It is the destruction of history. Cultural genocide, religious cleansing, erasure of existence. And the charred remains of Gaza are not just bodies. There are ruins of churches that stood longer than most modern states. These were not military targets, they were sacred. They were symbolic, and that's exactly why they were destroyed. truth was never hidden. This book is not written for those who claim ignorance. The evidence has always been visible. The footage is available, the satellite image exists. The survivor testimonies, the mass grave locations, the names of the dead. They are all archived, verified, geolocated. If the world does not know, it is because it has chosen not to know. If leaders refuse to act, it is because the truth conflicts with their power. This is not the failure of international law. It is the exposure of international law as a tool applied only to the weak, never the strong. What this book will do, this book does not offer false balance. There is no moral equivalence between the colonized and the colonizer. There is no shared blame between those bombing and those buried. This book is not neutral, and it does not pretend to be. It does what the powerful refuse to do. Names the crime, genocide. Names the actors, states, militaries, corporations, presidents. Names the victims, not as statistics, but as people with names, stories, histories. Traces the arc of violence from Balfour to Biden, from the Nakba to Netanyahu. Exposes the global architecture of denial, deflection, and deceit. It also provides tools, a glossary to cut through propaganda, a timeline to connect generations of displacement, primary source documents long buried in bureaucracy, a reference point to remember what too many will try to forget, refusing to forget. To write this book is to mourn in public.